Hello everyone, how is it going? I hope you all are well and safe and sound in your homes. On behalf of the English department, I'm going to offer you another course. This course is Literature and Globalization. This course being offered in Master of Philosophy in English Literature. The course code is ELIT 712. E stand for Literature and 712 is its number. Again, this course is offered in second semester of Master of Philosophy in English Literature, and this lecture is about course outlines. So I hope you will be very happy to I talk about the course outline first, and then I talk about something else of the course. So first of all, let's talk about the course objectives on another slide. There it is, course objectives. So the objectives of this course is that you would be able to learn to investigate the complex interactions and interdependencies of global, regional, and local aspects of life in social, economic, political, and religious spheres. You will also have a talent to investigate the interrelationship between globalization, identity, and social struggles. You will also have the ability to study the impact of globalization on literature and our understanding of the literary. You would have to understand the diverse mechanism at work in the globalization process, as well as investigating their forms in the contemporary literature. Course contents keeping in view the aims and objectives of the course and the requirements of the discipline. The course contents are structured to complement theory and practice and maximize research area for the MPhil scholars or PhD scholars. Scholars in the program can conduct research on globalization in relation to a wide range of topics such as dimensions of globalization, ideological, political, economic, social, cultural, and technological. You will be also have a thorough understanding of globalization, identity, and social struggles. Nationalism, something about religious fundamentalism that will play a role inside in this on the negative side of the globalization. Ethnic movements, localism will also be there, and regionalism, the idea of regionalism. You will have to be knowing globalization, inequality, and poverty, sweatshops labor, feminization of poverty. You would need to read a lot about cultural imperialism, McDonaldization, hybridization, multiculturalism, cosmopolitanism, consumerism, media, and globalization, and also homogeneity in it or heterogeneity in it. You will have to be the objective of this course also is that you will have to be knowing the network society, global village, cyberspace, the identities, colonization of communication space, traveling, and tourism. Now let me talk about the primary reading for the course. So first of all, I talk about the fiction novels that you would need to read it in this semester. Now, the first writer, Hayat is wrote American Dervish. American Dervish is a novel. It's a very famous novel. Please read it. Find it online, download it, and read it. Another one is Gold by Inch. Gift, Pattern of Recognition, How to Get Filthy Rich and Rising Asia. How to Get Filthy Rich and Rising Asia by Mohsen Hamid. The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Disgraced, Water by Spoonful, No vacancy. All of these are dramas that you need to be reading it in the course of this semester. You must need to read them. There's poetry. In the poetry, they're in the light and the darkness of the self and of the other. Core samples from the world. What must be said beyond archipelago, rowing down the river, rowing down the two rivers. Modernity at large, it's a critical reading. These are the books that has to be criticizing all of these novels from two different point of view, or from many point of view that would be these novels would be criticized, and it would help you to improve your analytical skills. So the book Modernity at Large, Cultural Dimensions of Globalization, Cosmopolitanism, Ethics in the World of Strangers, How Markets Corrupt Children, Infantilize Adults, and Swallow Citizen Whole. Globalization, The Human Consequences, Many Globalization, Cultural Diversity in Contemporary World, The Information Age. More critical readings, Creative Destruction, How Globalization is Changing World's Cultures, The Arab Spring, The End of Post-Colonialism, The Rise of Capitalism, The Shape of the Beast, Globalization, A Critical Introduction, Globalization, A Brief Insight, Globalization, A Very Short Introduction, Globalization, Second Edition. These are all those critical books that you would need to read it for your improvement of analytical skills. There are suggestive reading, which I want you to know these books too. So Martin wrote this, The Global Age, State and Society Beyond Modernity. James wrote another book, Fictions of Globalization, Consumption, the Market, and the Contemporary American Novel. Natalia have a book, The Mediating Nation, American Literature and Globalization from Henry James to Woodrow Wilson. Another important book is Literature and Globalization, Reader. Well, there are more books, The Lexus and the Olive Tree. Another book, The Consequences of Modernity. Anthony wrote a book, Runaway World, called How Globalization is Reshaping Our Lives. More suggested reading, Globalization in Literature, Mouth Spoke, The Reluctant Fundamentalist, World Literature in the Age of Globalization, Reflection on an Anthology, Aspects of Contemporary Literature, Global Transformations, Politics, Economics, and Culture, The Cultures of Globalization, Global Fishes, Post-Colonial Fusions, During Daily Battles, Interviews with the Moroccan Women Trans. These are the suggested reading that you would have to be reading and reading. Read is something that I always say to you in my class, and that's the only way for you to read so many books so that you can know what is going on in the world and what it means to be the literature of globalization. More suggestive reading. Globalization, Social Theory, Global Culture is another book. A Passage to Globalization, Globalization, Identities in South Asian Diasporic Fiction in Britain. Comparative Literature in the Age of Globalization. Globalization, Its Discontents. Globalization in Literature. Tropic of Orange, Infinite Jest, Immigrants, Fictions, Contemporary Literature in the Age of Globalization. So these are the books, too many, I'm not sure you will read them. Now let me talk about the novel to read for next week's session. American Dervish by Ayadakhta I choose for you. I want you to read it and download it and then read it for discussion with me. Discussion would be made in the easy class signing up by you, and there is a take for it discussion where we made a discussion. Everybody can go upload their discussion in it so that we can go there and do our discussions on these topics. In the meanwhile, I just want you to just give you a view on this American Dervish by Ayad Akhtar. So questions all over the world, particularly for Muslims in living abroad in UK and America. So what does it mean to be a Muslim in the United States? The title of Ayad Akhtar's first novel, American Dervish, implies he will take on that big question. Otherwise, he could have called it Milwaukee Dervish, or he could call it New York and Dervish, or he could call it Minnesota Dervish. For that's where may it's set. If the book never quite realizes those ambitions, it still smartly drops its modest portrait of adolescence with some big picture. Adolescence with some big picture inside about religion. The action take place in early 1980s, a safe distance from 9/11 and modern-day radical Islam. Like the Times, the narrator is fairly innocent. Hayat Shah is just 11 years old when the bulk of the story occurs, giving the early pages of nostalgic rather than naturalistic cast. The first source of the tension involves in extramarital affairs being conducted by Hayat's father, Naveed, to which many modern readers may devote a big sigh. What novel of contemporary American domesticity, after all, doesn't involve a cheating dad? Look beyond its teenage narrator and familiar coming of age frame. However, you will find American Dervish filled with all sorts of surprises and complication, from the cultural and the intellectual to the religious and the sexual. Wrinkle number one is Mena, a friend of Hayat's mother, Munir, who flees Pakistan and moves in with Shahs after her abusive ex-husband. Thankfully, no stereotypical scenes of Mena gooping at the supermarkets follow on. Indeed, Mena is already so westernized that one of her favorite books is Henry Miller's Henry Miller's Tropic of Cancer. If anyone's gooping, it's Hayat. Mena is gorgeous and prone to spinning seductive stories from and about the Quran. Bewitched Hayat resolves to become a Hafiz, a student who memorized the holy text. Whether his motives are spiritual or physical is moot. Either way, American Dervish intriguingly becomes a sort of assimilation novel in reverse. Akhtar gives Hayat's blossoming religious enthusiasm a decidedly romantic tone. He admires white clouds sculpted against blue sky, set like majestic monuments to the Almighty profound glory. Naturally, his transport doesn't last. Mina pursues a relationship with Nathan, a Jewish colleague of Hayat's physician father. But Nathan's decision to convert runs hurried into the bias of a local mosque. It's a stock conflict, except that Akhtar does a nice job of infusing the adolescent narration with some bite. As Hayat toys with anti Semitism, trying it on the way other teens might experiment with hairstyle, the implication is that certain corners of Islam have some growing up to do as well. Hayat's try at explaining his newfound creed to Imran reveals the depth of his juvenile incomprehension. Allah hated Jews more than all other people he created, more than animals, more than pigs even. Does this mean American Dervish intends to condemn an entire faith? Not at all. But Akhtar is perfectly happy to expose its contradiction and how easily it can be abused. Hayat is a perfect observer in that role, with Akhtar's bright, fast-paced writing persuasively conveying a boy's wide eyes shocked at adult behavior. When Naveed sets his son's precious Quran ablaze, the father has finally had enough of the faith-based squabbling under his roof. Hayat's emotions surge as if he is witnessing a murder. He flushed me. He flashed me a treacherous smile as he held the flame to the pages and waited. It wasn't until the paper caught fire that I realized I was surprised. I had expected the pages not to burn. But if the hero of the story is Hayat, its emotional heartbeat is Mena, suffused with sensuality and intelligence, but often culturally bound to suppress both. Later, after she falls into a new relationship as miserable as the one she just escaped, Mina will justify the wreckage by quoting a famous line from F. Scott, the cray cup. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. Is it a moral sentiment or the avoidance of one? Arthur doesn't address the matter too closely, except to voice skepticism of fundamentalism of whatever brand. Intention. Mina tells Hayat that's all Allah cares about. On this point, American Dervish is wholly successful, abruptly awakened to the complexities of faith. Hayat is forced to confront both the grace of a religion and the gazillion ways in which it can spark animosity among insiders and outsiders alike. Thanks to that accomplishment, American Dervish is a strong candidate for the title of the great Muslim American novel. Well, that is a little bit I can talk about. After we read the American Dervish, we would be able to go to the discussion tag on the web and you can write your questions. You can make everything after we done with this from next week. So now let's go to the assignments I have for this lecture. I want you to answer two questions. Question one is, what would be the impact of globalization on literature? Would it really bring the diverse mechanism at work in the globalization process? These are two questions that I'm going to give you. Now you have to work on these two questions. You have to answer each with 500 roughly, 500 words roughly, and then you will be going to the easy class where you can upload these answers, or you can drop it up into my email directly. So, this was a short lecture, and now that's the end. And I will be talking to you on next Sunday with the American Dervish. Thank you for listening, and stay safe in your homes. Allah Hafiz.